And this paints a picture of this entire master plan that makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, we've lost some talk.
Hi and welcome to Flossom Talk. I'm Vituscka Flo, journalist, Hollywood truth teller, and your voice of reason in a town built on delusion. There is so much to talk about, you guys. Amongst other things, there are more text messages revealed from James Vituscka, the Daily Mail reporter that got himself inserted into the lawsuit. And he keeps contradicting himself and he keeps giving basically Justin Baldoni more and more evidence, while what he's trying to do is kind of support the other narrative here. That's what it seems like to me. I've been talking about him a few times already. It's a big, big mess. And we have some really fascinating new theories on what really went on during this takeover of the movie. Was Sony involved the entire time? And what was the grand plan here? I never heard about this before, and I find it so fascinating and it makes so much sense to me. So please watch this entire episode and let me know what you think. But before we get into any of that, I wanted to make sure that everyone knows that if you are in the Las Vegas area, Perez Hilton is attending a hearing on Thursday. So if you are in the area, he would love for you to show up. He has been talking about this on his own YouTube channel because he wants people to show up to support him. He also wants the media to be there to cover this, as he's saying this is a very important case. He is there to protect reporters' privilege against Blake Lively, who he says has sent 3 lawyers, or is sending 3 lawyers there to make sure that Blake Lively gets her point of view across. And as you know, Perez Hilton is doing this by himself. He doesn't have any legal representation, so this is going to be nerve-wracking for him. But I really applaud him for the courage of doing this by himself. So if you're in the area, here is the address where you can go: Lloyd D. George's Courthouse. And the address is 333 South Las Vegas Boulevard, blah, 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 courtroom 7C at 12:15 p.m. And you can be in the courtroom with him and Blake Lively's lawyers. If you go, please let me know how it went and what it was like. I would love to hear. He also promised that he will wear his florals in court. And what we know so far is that Blake Lively's lawyers are going to try to discredit him and paint him as not being a journalist, because they want to strip him of reporter's privilege so they can get access to all his information. As you know, he got one of those more serious subpoenas that they want all his communications with sources, basically, and the Wayfair parties, etc. So anyways, if you're in Las Vegas, please show up for him.
If I win by myself against Blake Lively's very fancy lawyers, I think that's a big story. You should cover it. You should be there. Please help, please support. Help me get this video out there to the right people. Comment, share, that'll help as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think I got this.
Then we have a little more tea on the James Vituscka situation. As I mentioned before, Katie over at Without a Crystal Ball is releasing all these text messages that she had between her and James Vituscka. He has been feeding her text messages and emails that he had with Brian Friedman and that team, and Leslie Sloan and Blake Lively's team. And now she's sharing all of this. And it seems like James Vituscka keeps contradicting himself over and over again. As I've said before, I've spoken about him a few times already last week, because some of this information was coming out then, because he filed a new sworn statement where he's like backtracking on what he said on the first one and said that, oh, I didn't really mean that, I meant this. He's kind of like flip-flopping around right now, and no one really knows if they can trust him. So let's see how the judge will respond to that letter he filed, and how Brian Friedman and the Wayfair parties will respond to that letter. Because if they have the same information as Katie has, which I think they do, because according to Katie, they do have this information as well, then I feel like James Vitushka is kind of toast. So Katie posted this on her Instagram this weekend. She said that on June 9th, James Vitushka lied to his editor that he never told Brian Friedman or Melissa Nathan anything about SA, even though he absolutely said it in a text message. He then went on to claim Sloan created lies that are so outrageous and horrific to me in these correspondences, and we used this information to create massive exclusives that were highly trafficked and picked up worldwide. So he's saying that Daily Mail used all this information that Leslie Sloan fed him and created headlines all over the world after they published stories in the Daily Mail about this, meaning they were helping to smear Justin Baldoni. Then she says that the evidence will make your jaw hit the floor. This is James Vitushka telling Katie. It helped to create the false narrative that started this all against Baldoni. It literally started with us and it will now end with us, he said, because at this point, he was on the right side of the truth. And she's attaching a text message from James Vitushka where he's saying, "Hi, I try not to look at anything today, but of course I had to. This is the issue that I'm having. It's pretty much just this. I'm being framed for committing perjury by Sloan, leaving out the rest of the declaration, and now I'm getting all these threats and bombarded with hateful messages when I didn't do anything wrong. I just need to put it out there. Sloan has made it clear to the world that she never told me that Blake was SA. She used that to have the case dismissed. I just need to clear that I never told Brian this either. It is making it look like I lied and that it is what everybody thinks. This is Friedman's error, not me. I never told anybody she said this ever." Then, according to this text message that she's attaching, he said, "Once this evidence is submitted, it will be abundantly clear that Sloan had me sign this declaration to silence me and prevent me from going on camera and under oath with what she knows I have against her. She didn't want me deposed and thought that she would be dismissed on this alone, preventing Friedman from deposing me as well. As you know, yesterday, if you watched my episode, I had this list of things that Leslie Sloan was feeding him about Justin Baldoni to make him write negative stories about Justin Baldoni. And this is what he is referring to here, that Leslie Sloan knew that he had all this dirt on her. So she was desperate to get her case dismissed, and she pressured him to sign this declaration to silence him. In another correspondent yesterday, he said that it was Daily Mail who pressured him to sign that declaration because they said that he had leaked information about sources and that was unacceptable, and also that he inserted himself into a lawsuit and he should be the journalist and not part of a lawsuit, and that's why they fired him. But before they did that, they pressured him to sign that first sworn statement. But now he's saying that Sloan's forced him to do this. It's a little bit confusing because his stories keeps changing. She also attached this evidence where she says James Vitushka alleges that Brian Friedman and Melissa Nathan acted in bad faith. Remember, I said that yesterday. That's what he said in his latest statement. And here she said that James Vitushka alleges that Brian Friedman and Melissa Nathan acted in bad faith by using this text message without his authorization. He basically blamed everything on Brian Friedman in that last letter to say that it was his fault and Wayfair's fault that he lost his job and he lost his reputation as a journalist, and that they used his text message without his permission. But in this text to Katie, he says something else. She says that, however, he shared this document with me where he specifically wrote that he authorized them to use this message, so as long as his name was redacted. And you can see here on the message that she attached, it says in the end, Leslie used this text message with Freeman in the context that I sent it prior to either lawsuits being filed. This text message with Freeman was followed up by a text message with Nathan in which I agreed to let them use the text so long as my name and photo were removed, which they were. Anyway, this saga with this journalist is really interesting to me. I wonder what's going to happen this week. If anyone is going to respond to his new letter, let's see. In the meantime, you should go over and check out Without a Crystal Ball's video about this. I will leave a link in my description as well, so you can hear her talking about this and go more into details about her conversations with James Vituscka. She also attached on Reddit a screenshot where you can see all these emails that he actually sent to her. So yeah, if you want a deep dive, you know where to go. Okay, so let's get to the real tea here, which makes so much sense to me. Now everything comes into place, and this paints a picture of this entire master plan that makes so much sense to me. So just keep this in mind. Ryan had positioned himself in Hollywood as the guy who can guarantee box office, right? Before It Ends With Us and everything, he was the go-to guy. And on top of that, he had his company, Maximum Effort, who was genius at marketing and PR whatsoever. After COVID, studios started to freak out that they wanted people to come back in and watch movies again. And Ryan Reynolds had proved that he could kind of promise this entire package for the studios. And now we've seen enough evidence and how Blake Lively, with the help of Ryan Reynolds, tried to take over everything from It Ends With Us. But did they do this by themselves? And this is where this person who sent me this said, probably not. They think Sony was in on it. So if you look at the timeline here, the movie released on August 9th. On August 14th, Sony's then CEO, Tony Vinciquerra, goes public praising Blake Lively as a visionary and saying that he wants to do 12 more movies with her. The Hollywood Reporter did a big story on it. It said, "It Ends With Us. Sony chief praises Blake Lively for advancing the conversation about DV." So remember, this is when Blake Lively already started getting a lot of backlash for the tone-deaf promotion of the movie. And he said, Sony CEO said this, he said, "Blake, Colleen, and so many women put so much effort into this remarkable movie, working selflessly from the start to ensure that such an important subject matter was handled with care. Audiences love the movie. Blake's passion and commitment to advancing the conversation around DV is commendable." Well, we all miss that. And then he ended it saying, "We love working with Blake and we want to do 12 more movies with her." So keep that in mind. And then look at this text message that was going on between Justin Baldoni and the Dream Team. So they had like a group chat called the Dream Team, which I thought was cute, with a little heart and a little movie thing. And Justin is texting one of his editors. There are two editors, at least, in this chat. And he's saying, "Just curious if you guys have peeked at her cut and if anything has changed." Editor number 2 says, "I've just been told that we are not permitted to look." Remember, this is when Blake Lively had already taken over the editing of the movie, as well as she, as you know, she took over wardrobe and music, and yeah, even the script. Ryan Reynolds rewrote that. And then Justin says, "Haha, wow, when did that happen that they weren't even permitted to look?" And the editor number 1 says, "As per Sony." So he's saying that Sony is not allowing them to actually look at the edits that Blake Lively did. And then editor 2 said, "This evening through," and then it's black. I don't know who it is. It's a person or whatever. And then Justin Baldoni says, "Wow, okay, then the editors and director isn't allowed to look at an actress cut. Got it. Well, here we go. We will keep taking the high road," he says. So it's pretty obvious here that Sony played a big part in helping Blake Lively take over the movie. And you have to keep in mind that Sony wanted to have a relationship with Ryan Reynolds because he could promise them gold. And of course, they wanted to take good care of his wife if she could also be a part of the deal that they maybe could pen down with Ryan Reynolds. Ryan, at this point, had his Deadpool deal with Disney. He had Netflix deals. He had deals with Paramount through his company, Maximum Effort, and also as an actor and as a producer. For Sony to cuddle up to Ryan and Blake could almost look like a box office recovery master plan for them. They wanted a long-term investment in Blake and Ryan because they thought Ryan Reynolds means box office success. Then by September 2024, Vinciquerra is stepping down as a CEO for Sony. I don't know what that happened, if there was any tension behind the scenes here and why he stepped down, and if it had anything to do with him supporting Blake Lively so loudly. I don't know, but we know that he was very close with both Blake and Ryan. There are a bunch of pictures of him posing with them on the red carpet for the premiere of It Ends With Us. And here is another reason why Sony wanted to be a part of the power couple and their future plans. So someone posted this on Reddit, and I think it makes a lot of sense. It says, so why was Blake fighting for It Ends With Us? She wasn't. She was going for the whole damn thing. Colleen Hoover's entire line of books. Blake was likely going to be positioned as heading up the women's branch of Ryan's studio. So this person is saying Ryan probably has a grand plan here. He wants to create his own studio. Ryan thinks big. Why? Overseeing all of Colleen's book, which as we see are getting made right and left. She has 3 books now in the making to become movies with big stars attached to them, would shift Blake out of acting, something she never shined at, and into directing, producing. And that would place her above all other women in the business. I think they know by now Blake won't win an Oscar for acting and probably not for directing, but she can for producing. That's why the PGA credit was so critical. You know, she got that stamp from Producers Guild of America. There was a lot of talk back and forth, and that's why she added all these things into her responsibility because she wanted that producer credit. And the person points out that this is the first move in this very long chess game to rise to the top of Hollywood as the new power couple. Does he have a master plan of owning his own studio at the end of this? I don't know, but I think this makes so much sense of his plan for Blake Lively. Look at Reese Witherspoon, right? She has Hello Sunshine, which has been super successful. And she's been buying up best-selling women's novels and built prestigious projects like Big Little Lies, Daisy Jones and the Six, Little Fires Everywhere. That positioned her not just as an actress, but as a tastemaker and mogul. So Ryan Reynolds saw this playbook and was like, I can make Blake into that. Why shouldn't we together be the power couple who dominates adaptions? Then they have Colleen Hoover, who's a gold mine. People love her books. And as I said, her books are being turned into movies all the time. And whoever controls the IP has the power. Imagine if Ryan could leverage his Hollywood deals to get Blake positioned as the face and producer of Hoover's adaptions. It would instantly build her credibility, not just as an actress, but as a female producer entrepreneur. And since we know that Blake Lively is already a successful entrepreneur, this would make it possible for her to climb up the ladder in Hollywood. So if you add that to what Ryan Reynolds could already offer with maximum efforts, together they could offer IP, a star, marketing engine, and that equals Hollywood gold. So let's bring this back to Sony. If they saw this happening and was thinking, hey, there's an opportunity here. Maybe we could get 12 movies with Blake Lively, adapting them from Colleen Hoover's books. They weren't just backing her performance here. They were investing in a future with Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. The problem is Reese Witherspoon's Rise came with critical acclaim and relatively clean PR. But for Blake and Ryan, this didn't end that way. Unfortunately for them, their plan didn't work because people have seen through it. And now they're in this huge lawsuit, and Blake Lively's reputation is completely tarnished. Ryan Reynolds as well. Anyways, I do find this theory very, very interesting. Yeah, let me know what you think. If you think this could be the master plan and this is the way they went around this to try and take over, not only It Ends With Us, but take over the entire franchise and take over Colleen Hoover's book empire to make it into Ryan and Blake's studio. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, you guys. I really appreciate all your support and keep sending me tips. I really appreciate all the great tips that you're sending me, and please keep doing that. And yes, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss an episode of Flawsome Talk. And I'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Yeah, we flawsome talk.